Hello everybody and welcome to this week's video where I'm going to discuss the importance and the practical uses of the hand placements in Usui Reiki Ryoho. And I'm going to approach this topic from a perspective or an angle that you may not have been taught in your training. So I hope you find this video beneficial to your practice. So in level 1, Shoden, we learn the initial hand placements of Usui Reiki Ryoho. And these are integral and serve as kind of the cornerstone for our self-practice, or one aspect of our self-practice anyways. When we are working with the hand placements, it is all about the process of turning into the self. Shoden itself means the initial teachings or the first teachings of Usui Reiki Ryoho, and we need to see that as taking our first step into the self, right? And so when I started teaching Shoden much earlier in my career as a Reiki teacher and practitioner, I was teaching the hand placements from almost like a checklist, right? Like almost like position 1, 2, 3, 4. And of course, I still go through these and I still talk about all the different hand positions and the placements and the sequence and so on. But what I was finding at the beginning, and I think this is the point that many of you may not have been taught and might find it refreshing to hear, I was finding that if people had a checklist, like we have to stay on the first position for 3 minutes or whatever, then people were actually not doing their work honestly. Because if we think about holding each of the hand placements for maybe you've been told 90 seconds, maybe you've been told 3 minutes, if we look at 3 minutes per hand placement, I mean, this is going to be over an hour, almost an hour and a half of practice, depending on how many hand placements you've learned, right? And that is absolutely necessary, I think, in many ways for a brand new student. We need to spend as much time turning into the self as we possibly can when we're new to the practice, right? However, there's some issues with the adherence to the time frame and the sequence of the hand placements, because what if there's an area of the body that you instinctively know needs more attention as you're turning into the self, right? When I was teaching this on my initial courses many, many, many years ago, I would find that students would bring this up. I felt like I should have stayed over the heart or on the throat or whatever it might have been, but the timer went off, and so I moved to the next hand placement. And that got me to start thinking about this idea of the necessity and the sequence of the hand placements. Now, let me unpack that a little bit further, because in no way whatsoever am I saying stop doing the hand placements or just jump around and do what you think, right, or what you feel. The level 1 student, if you're brand new to Reiki, it's super, super important that you start to build your foundational practice of turning in with honesty. Remember, just for today, I will do my work honestly, okay? And so what that means from a level 1 student, especially on your first maybe 21 days of necessary introspective work, is that you hold position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? Depending on how you've learned, there might be some differences there, but you hold each one of those hand positions for your duration. So if you've been taught 90 seconds, then try to hold that for 90 seconds, right? And pay attention to the thing that you feel in that spot or that hand placement. So for instance, when I put my hands over my eyes, my awareness is going into my eyes. It's going right to the center of the palm and its interaction with that part on my body. So when I place my hands over my eyes, like many of you probably feel or have experienced, you start to feel and notice the eyes themselves, right? And that means the rest of the entire body calms down. It means the awareness of the attachment to the rest of the self drops away, which is really beautiful, right? Because that's what Shoden is all about. So if we can go into that practice of turning into where each one of the hand positions are and sitting with that one spot, well, then we start to uncover the path into the self. And so here's what I would urge everybody. Now, if that path seems a little bit foreign or it seems a little bit kind of distant or you haven't really felt it out yet, then keep doing the hand placements one by one for the duration that you've been taught. Usually that's 90 seconds or 3 minutes, okay? And we do that honestly. And so what do I mean by that? Well, let's say that you, on your 21 days, right, when we start out with the practice, you might not have an hour every day to do your work. Well, if that's the case, then you need to set aside as much time as you have and then sit with the self for as long as you honestly can. So if that means I've only got 21 minutes, then I might sit here on position 1 for 3 minutes, another 3 minutes on position 2 over the temples, another 3 minutes here on position 3 with the right hand on the top of the head and the left hand on the back of the head. Position 4, another 3 minutes. So now we're at 12 minutes in total over the throat. The next 3 minutes bringing us to 15 over the heart center. The next 3 minutes over the solar plexus to 18. And then finally down on the tanden, or the lower belly, the sacral chakra, for the last 3 minutes. And that's going to be completely sufficient for your practice because you're doing your work honestly. Now, honesty here is the key. If you are sitting down for your practice and you know that you could really have an hour, you could really have an hour and 15 minutes, you could really do the full duration of your healing, but you just don't want to, you're just kind of lazy, you just, whatever, the day's been too difficult and you just really don't want to, okay, then do what you can, but remember you have to stay honest with your practice. And like everything else in life, the more we put into the Reiki practice, especially in the foundational studies of it with Shoden and the practice when you're learning it, then that is where your roots of the practice are going to take hold, and it's going to be that much stronger for you. So if we do our work honestly, especially at the beginning, then all of those sensations when you place your hands over each one of the hand placements are going to be that much more robust and that much more easy to identify. And when we start to feel that, you know, when my hands are over my eyes, for instance, my eyes start to tingle over my temples. I can feel kind of the totality of my head start to relax and so on. When we start to feel that, it helps us to understand that Reiki is actually doing something. It's calming us down. It's letting us relax. And then that thing becomes something that we become more and more and more aware of and accustomed to. Here's the kind of deviation from the hand placements here. If you have become accustomed to that feeling, so for instance, we place our hands over our eyes and wow, okay, I can immediately feel it. Hands over the temples, yep, wow, okay, immediately can feel it. I've built by my self-practice, and by I mean you, and I mean everybody listening, by building our own self-practice, as soon as we place the hands over a part of the body, we can innately feel that part of the body. Once you've developed that kind of connection, then allow the body to start guiding you. Okay. And what I mean by that is, let's say that you have, I don't know, a sore throat, right? Then I would encourage all of you to just start here, right? Bring the hands right to the throat chakra and just start here on the throat. And we would simply hold here for as long as we need. And now this is part of doing our work honestly. So if you have a sore throat that you really want to work on and help heal, then leave your hands over your throat for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, as long as comfortable, right? When we do that, we can really start to feel the deeper effect of Reiki, because Reiki is going to affect us in layers, traditionally anyways. When we start the practice, we're busy. We're busy in our mind and we're busy in our body, right? We have chaotic thoughts and pains and issues that we're carrying with us and all these types of things, right? So as we start the practice, then all of those things are going to soften. That's part one. Part two is we are then, because of the softening of the mind and the body, we are going to then turn into that one part of the body where we're giving our focus. So that's step two. So you might be turning into the throat, and then everything else in the mind and the body is quiet, right? Now, step three is that you start to actually unwind the resistance or the illness or the suffering or the attachment, whatever it may be, in that part of the body. That's the bit that we can allow ourselves to sink further into. So when you are working with your hand placements, even as a level 1 student, once you have traditionally worked on those 21 days and you've really felt your journey in, then I would encourage you to be guided by your own intuition, be guided by your mind and your body, right? So when we go over these hand placements, it's not that we can't go through the entirety of the practice, but what I would rather suggest here is, if you know that there's a part of you that is kind of out of balance or feeling sick, or you've got something that you'd like to work on, then find your stillness, find your practice, and go right to that, right? And so let me go over here as a guideline, or just as a reminder, kind of how that practice might look for everybody. And what I'll do is I'll go over the initial meditations, and then I'm going to go into the hand placements as a practice, right? And so to begin our practice, we bow in Gaosho. So we bring our hands to heart center. It's a little gap between the palms. And here we just allow all of the external stimulation. So the thoughts in the mind, the sensations of the body, the noises from outside. So for instance, the wind here on this beautiful early fall day here in France. We allow all of those things to kind of soften and quiet down. My awareness is on my hands. And now we go into energy bathing. It's Kenyoku-o. And this I'm going to practice as we do in Japan. So it's very quick. So it's just like this. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Then back to Gosho. Now I start breathing Joshin Kokyo Ho through my nose into the lower belly, spirit and soul cleansing breath. So I'm inflating my belly and deflating it on the inhale and exhale respectively. And then once relaxed, I go to position 1. And I will hold here for as long as I feel necessary. So for the sake of the video, I'm not going to delay on any of these positions. But in my own treatment, if something feels like it needs attention, then I'll stay here as long as I feel I need to. Okay, so that's finished. Then we move to the temples. And again, I'm going to remain here as long as I need to. So if I have a headache or some pain or pressure arises, then I'm going to leave my hands and allow that to settle. Position number 3, hand on the top of the head, right hand, left hand on the back of the neck. Around the throat, number 4. Over the heart center, number 5. Solar plexus, number 6. And then number 7, we move down into the hara, the dantian. So we hold the left hand over the lower belly, and then we put the right hand on top. So it's looking like this. Left hand is close to the body or touching the lower belly. A couple of fingers width below the navel, and then the right hand is on top. The thumbs are touching, and I'm holding over the tanden. And then once I feel ready to release, Reiki concentration, Sheshin Toitsu, I have my hands chest width apart, or perhaps just a few inches, whatever is comfortable for you. And we bring the awareness here between the hands now. Okay, so that would be the kind of the duration of a traditional, normal, if you want to say normal, sequence of the hand placements. And you would hold each one of those for your 90 seconds or your 3 minutes, right? And I'm very conscious that you may have been taught more hand placements, for instance, going down the legs, over the stomach and the spleen, over the liver, on the right side of the body, and so on. And all of those are completely fine. The hand placements are simply areas of attention on the body. So if you've been taught 24 placements and you do 24, that's great. You can continue to do those. You can also recognize here that Reiki in and of itself will traverse the entirety of the body. And so one really beautiful hand placement, the one that I ended on in that practice over the tanden with the left hand and then the right hand like this over the lower belly, if we find that when we get here, the mind and the body are becoming at peace, but we feel pains throughout the body and so on, or thoughts in the mind, we can simply hold that hand placement and it will work on the rest of the entire body, right? Remember, Reiki is the energy of all things. And so because of that, we don't need to worry about necessarily where the hands are. So it's like where you put your hands, that's where your initial awareness is going to be. But as that initial awareness softens and quiets in the mind and the body, then that awareness is going to spread to the totality of your mind, body, and energetic body, right? Or your spirit or your soul or whatever you'd like to call that. So we can move through the entirety of the practice by turning into the sensitivity or the awareness in our body of what we need at that moment. And so this is how it looks for me in my normal practice. So I'll first bow in Gosho. And once I feel that my mind and my body are quiet here, then I'll begin by going into Kenyoku, energy bathing. Hands back to Gosho. Breathe through the entirety of the body into the lower belly. And here I'm turning really into the self, right? I'm really bringing my awareness into the self. And if I notice here an area where there's pain or resistance, like let's say it's in my heart, then I might just begin by placing my hands right over the heart center. And I'm going to hold them here as long as I feel I need to. That might be the entire duration of my practice. So that might be 30 minutes, right? My daily practice with Reiki is anywhere from 30 minutes to 3 hours. It depends on where I'm at, how I'm feeling, how deep the practice is, and so on. There's no set reason that you need to go for a longer or shorter duration. Your guiding precept here should be doing your work honestly, right? So when we do our work honestly, that means you honestly sit with yourself and you honestly sit with the practice for as long as you need, right? And when we do that, then we allow the space for the mind and the body to relax. If you saw my video from last week where I was answering the question, what is Reiki? You might remember me saying, Shin Shin Kaizen Usui Reiki Ryoho. This is the importance of doing our work honestly when it comes to our self-healing. Shin Shin Kaizen is the mind-body improvement, right? And so we're working to quiet down the mind and quiet down the body. And we do that by turning into the self with honest self-practice. So I hope that helps. I hope my thoughts on the hand placements and perhaps how you can incorporate them into your Reiki practice helps you along your journey. I'm always so grateful, everybody, for your support of the channel. Thank you so much for your subscriptions. And if you have any questions on this video, please let me know in the comments below. As always, be well, everybody, and in Gao Shao to all.